The Wizard of Oz. Once there was a little girl named Dorothy, who lived on a farm in Kansas. She lived with her Uncle Henry and her Auntie Em and her little dog Toto. Nothing very exciting ever happened on that farm, until the day of the big wind. It was a wind called a tornado, and it came roaring across the fields, scattering haystacks and chicken coops and tree branches every which way. Then it roared and twisted around the farmhouse, and it picked up the house, Dorothy, Toto, and all. The wind carried the house high, high into the air. It carried the house far, far from Kansas. Then it set the house down with a soft whump. It set the house down in a place where there were green hills and sparkling blue streams, and, of all things, crowds of strange little people. "Welcome to Munchkin Land," said one little man to Dorothy. "Thank you," said Dorothy politely. "It's very pretty here. But how can I get home to Kansas? My Auntie Em and Uncle Henry will be worried about Toto and me." The little man had never heard of Kansas. None of the little people had ever heard of Kansas. "My dear," said a nice old lady, "you must go to the Emerald City and ask Oz, the great wizard, how to get to Kansas. Oz is very wise and wonderful, and he will know about Kansas if anyone does." "Follow the yellow brick road, and you can't go wrong," said a little gentleman. "It will take you right to the Emerald City." So Dorothy and Toto set off down the yellow brick road. Before long, they came to a cornfield, and there was a scarecrow stuck up on a pole. He was a most unusual scarecrow. He could nod and wink and even talk. When he learned that Dorothy and Toto were going to see the wizard, he decided that he would go too. "Perhaps the mighty wizard could give me some brains," he said. Dorothy agreed that even a scarecrow would be better off with a brain or two, so she helped him down off his pole and over the fence. After a bit, Dorothy and Toto and the scarecrow saw, beside the road, a man who was made entirely of tin. He stood holding an axe, but he didn't speak and he didn't stir. "Why, he's all rusted," said Dorothy. She ran to a nearby cottage, where she found an oil can. Then she oiled the Tin Woodman's joints very carefully. The Tin Woodman was ever so grateful that he could move once more. And when he heard that Dorothy and the Scarecrow were going to see the Great Wizard, he asked if he might come too. "Perhaps Oz would give me a heart," he said. "It's most difficult to be without a heart. I want to love people, but one needs a heart for that." "I suppose one does," said Dorothy. "All right, come along with us, and let's take the oil can," said the Scarecrow. "We don't want you to rust again." So off they all went down the yellow brick road. Dorothy and Toto, the Scarecrow, the Tin Woodman, and of course the oil can. Suddenly there was a terrible roar, and a huge lion sprang onto the road. He opened his enormous mouth and showed his sharp teeth. It seemed he wanted to gobble Toto up. "Don't you dare!" cried Dorothy, rushing to the lion and slapping him on the nose. The lion stopped roaring and began to cry. "Why, you're just a big coward," said Dorothy. "I know," sobbed the lion. "I can't help it. I was born this way." Dorothy and her friends felt so sorry for the wretched weeping lion that they invited him to come with them. "Perhaps the mighty Oz will give you some courage," said Dorothy. The cowardly lion wanted courage more than he wanted anything, so he was happy to journey to the Emerald City of Oz. As night was coming on, the travelers saw a great castle near the road. "Oh dear!" the cowardly lion shivered. "Oh my! The Wicked Witch of the West lives there. Let's hide quickly." Too late. The Wicked Witch had already seen them. "Travelers on the road!" she screeched, and she called her winged monkeys. "The Tin Man and the Scarecrow are of no use," she told the monkeys. "Destroy them, but bring the little girl and the dog and the lion to me." The winged monkeys swooped down upon Dorothy and her friends. They hurled the Tin Woodman from a cliff, and he lay below, bent and battered. They tore the straw from the Scarecrow and tossed his clothes into a tree, so there was nothing left of him but the bundle of clothes. But Dorothy, Toto, and the Cowardly Lion were carried to the Wicked Witch. "You'll scrub my floors and wash my dishes," said the witch to Dorothy. "As for your lion, he'll pull my chariot." "I will not," said the Cowardly Lion, and he said it in a very brave way. "You will, or I'll put you in a cage," said the Wicked Witch. "You cruel thing," said Dorothy, and though she was really a gentle girl, she picked up a bucket of water and threw it over the witch. "Ow, ow, ow!" screamed the witch. "Now look what you've done! You've ruined me!" And right there before Dorothy's eyes, the Wicked Witch of the West melted away like snow under the summer sun. Dorothy and Toto and the Cowardly Lion fled from that horrid castle. They quickly found the Tin Woodman and hammered the dents out of his arms and legs so that he was almost as good as new. They found the Scarecrow's empty clothes and stuffed them with fresh straw. There was the Scarecrow again, whole and as happy as ever. Then they hurried on until they reached the green, gleaming, sparkling Emerald City of Oz. When the great Wizard of Oz learned that the travelers at his gates had melted the Wicked Witch of the West, he consented to see them. He was not exactly what Dorothy had expected. He was a timid little man who hid behind his emerald throne when they first came in. However, he was also a wise little man. "You want brains, do you?" he said to the Scarecrow. He took the straw out of the Scarecrow's head and put a big heap of pins and needles in its place. "Now you're bristling with good sharp brains," said he. "Use them and you'll be as clever as can be." "The Scarecrow is clever already," whispered Dorothy. "I suspected as much," said the wizard. Then into the Tin Woodman's chest, the wizard put a pretty little heart made of red satin. "The Tin Woodman has been tender-hearted all along," said Dorothy. "I imagine so," replied the wizard. The wizard then gave the Cowardly Lion a magic potion, and the lion gulped down every drop. When he finished, he roared louder than any 3 lions. "I feel so brave!" he cried. "You are already brave," the wizard told him. "Courage means doing what's right, even if you feel afraid while you're doing it." "Now what about Kansas?" asked Dorothy. The great wizard smiled and took a pair of pretty silver slippers out of his pocket. "These are truly magic," he said. "Put them on and they'll take you wherever you want to go." So Dorothy put on the slippers, said goodbye to her friends, picked up Toto, and thought, "Kansas." In a twinkling, the Emerald City was gone. Back she was in Kansas. Auntie Em was hugging her, Uncle Henry was wiping his eyes and laughing, and Toto was barking. She was home again, and of all the wonderful places she had been, home was the best place to be.